Yeah, that's how they do it. They did the same thing last year. Okay.
There was emotion, a lot of it, on both sides of the aisle, both families. At one point, Michael Slater.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to eating a beignet. I don't know if anybody's ever had one or not, so I think that's kind of the talk of the team right now.
It'd be nice if our marketing department helps us to get some people in the seats. It's a little disappointing to continue to play after the two winningest years in the history of the school in a building with 4,000 or 5,000 people. It's embarrassing.
Oh, Frank, what are you doing calling out the fans like that? Never a good thing to do. But you are Frank Martin, and you are bigger than they are, and you are right. What is it with – oh, here I go. Wasn't going to go there, but people, you got to get out and support the Gamecock basketball team if you are a Gamecock fan. I mean, it is pretty embarrassing the last 2 home games to see so many empty seats. I wasn't there last night. Willie P was, so he can testify as to the lack of attendance last night.
I texted you about what time? Like 7:30 last night. What did I text you?
He was not going to be happy after the game.
I said something to the effect of, if he wasn't happy on Saturday night, he's really not going to be happy tonight. And they announced 10,000 in that attendance post-game box score. Yeah, that was not 10,000. That was very, very much not 10,000.
The only thing he didn't say was, well, all these people, they're all out looking for a new offensive coordinator. What are they doing here?
Well, it's weird because he went on national. He literally was on national radio about an hour ago, the show that I used to work on at SB Nation Radio, and he literally reiterated the same exact line. So he's obviously not regretting saying that, number one. And number two, he has a beef. I think he has an entitlement to that beef. But at the other part of this, too, is that this is not a new problem when it comes to college basketball. A lot of these early season games, and there's a reason why he's played 7 of 8 away from home, because he knows that for the majority of these types of games, fans don't necessarily want to see them. They don't.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's always been a problem. This is not a new thing, whether it was Eddie Fogler or it was any of the Gamecock. I can't attest to what it was like back with Frank McGuire and those guys, but Bill Foster, Eddie Fogler, George Felton, they've always had a hard time late November, December. This is a reason why I argue they start the basketball season way too early, and people don't really get involved and caught up in it until after football championship games. You got that lull before the bowl games, and then you come back in January, you start playing the games that really matter, and people then turn out.
And it's not just a South Carolina problem. Like, this is a problem that anywhere outside of maybe Duke, UNC, and Kansas. Those are like the only 3 schools in the country that have a full house, whether they're playing UNC or whether they're playing North Southwestern, North Dakota State for the deaf, dumb, and blind.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
don't pick on my alma mater like that.
Well, guys, figure it out. It takes our minds a little bit to shift from the oblong ball to the round ball. Just think about the casual fan, who has to shift, know where the players are, who's this player, what teams are good, what teams aren't. So it's a constant struggle. Plus, I think part of it is financial, because the really good fans who follow and tailgate at every home game are out there Christmas shopping right now. And maybe they say, wait a minute, basketball ticket now or wait till January?
Well, here's the issue. Kind of to refute what you're saying, what Frank said on the radio today is that a lot of this is not necessarily fans not buying the tickets. The tickets are bought. They've been consumed. It's just people aren't using them, and they're not getting them in the hands of people who can use them. So maybe there needs to be a better process in getting the tickets in the hands of people who are basically eating them.
One of those boards on social media where you
something like that. Because I mean,
and I think if the colleges were forced to report actual attendance, they might be shamed into doing some things to get more people in the seats.
No kidding.
Yeah, they report over 10,000, but there's like 4,000, 5,000 in there. Again, it's not just South Carolina. It's all over the place.
That's not butts in seats is what it is.
Yeah, Clemson reports for every men's basketball game. I think they report like, 5,000 something. Yeah. There might be 2,000 in there. But it will change when January gets here and people will start showing up. They win games, they'll pack the place, and it'll be a great atmosphere, and Frank will feel better. We'll hear from him coming up a little bit later on. Today, Dabo Swinney and the other 3 coaches in the playoffs had a press conference in Atlanta previewing the college football playoffs. One piece of news coming out of there, Nick Saban said Jeremy Pruitt, who now is officially the head coach of Tennessee, will stay on as defensive coordinator through the national state finals. Any other news to come out of that from what you heard Willie?
nothing pressing as far as a news item of that nature. Not only will he coach in the Sugar Bowl, but he will also coach if they go beyond that and play in the college football championship. But there was a little bit of an interesting, awkward moment, not just after Nick Saban talked about Jeremy Pruitt. There was an interesting moment involving Dabo Swinney having to sit next to Nick Saban, knowing that he voted Saban behind Ohio State in the college football coaches poll to conclude the season.
Yeah, Jeremy's going to finish the season with us. He's going to go do some things to get his program started at Tennessee, and when we're ready to practice, he'll be back with us and be a part of the playoff. I really appreciate the fact that, Kirby did a great job of doing that a couple years ago when he had an opportunity, and I think it shows a lot of respect for the players on our team who have worked hard to help us all have success this season.
Dabo, you voted Ohio State number 4 in your final poll. Did you feel they were worthy over Alabama?
You want the honest answer? 3 o'clock in the morning on a bus ride home from Charlotte, a moment of insanity, complete insanity. No, it was just coming home. Literally, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, oh man, I got to do this poll and looking at it, and they won 11 games. Alabama won 11 games. They won the Big Ten championship, and it's a different. Obviously, the committee has a lot of things to look at and a lot of data, and they're going to pick the 4 best teams however they see it. And at that moment, that's the way I voted. But they're all great teams, man.
He will go back
He was
in the
just
middle.
respecting his alma mater. That's all.
I'm trying to get rid of it, but I can't get rid of it.
If there's ever anything that could cause you to endorse the abolition of so many polls that we have, I think you just heard that from
Why
Dabo
didn't you
Swinney.
just throw the SID under the bus?
I have never heard Dabo Swinney dance more than with that answer.
That was
because
crazy.
He's got Saban sitting next to him, all right? So he didn't want an elbow in the ribs or a stare from Saban. Number 2, he damn sure didn't want to say anything that could be taken as a shot at Alabama and be used for bulletin board material. I mean, if he just said, yeah, absolutely, I thought Ohio State was the 4th best team and should have been in there, well, that would have ended up on the bulletin boards in Tuscaloosa, lickety split.
And like
so
Saban,
he was definitely 3 o'clock in the morning. Look, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm darn tired, and I just picked up. I got to do a poll. I mean, I put SMU in there at number 16. I put, yeah, that was a complete. That was for his sake. That was a. That was a slow dance. That was a real slow dance with his wife in his arms. He was getting away from that answer.
That was a Chaplin-esque, would you say?
Yes, it was. We'll hear more from Dabo and more from Saban coming up a little bit later on. We'll hear from Frank Martin. Mike Morgan on the move with us tonight at the bottom of the hour. We'll have our Give and Go segment tonight, a little bit after 7 o'clock. A lot of basketball to talk about now. As that starts to heat up, we'll get the guys' take on South Carolina's performance in its win last night and what Clemson has been doing lately. The Tigers have a game coming up on Friday, I think.
Saturday.
Right?
They play Samford. One other interesting note I wanted to point out from the press conference, all 4 coaches that were assembled were asked about whether or not they'd want to change the playoff. Would it shock you to know that none of them want to change the playoff?
Wow.
Well,
they want to keep it just the way it is.
They're dominating the playoff. Yes. Why should they want to change? They're in it every year.
I find
except for Georgia. The other 3 are routinely in. We should mention before the break, the big news out of USC today is that Will Muschamp has lost his tight end for next year. Hayden Hurst is going to the NFL draft after the bowl game. More on that. We'll talk about the search for a new coordinator at USC. A lot of recruiting, as you might expect. All that and more coming up.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut at the beach. It turned wintry here today. Cold, rainy. It's going to improve as the week wears on the last couple of days. So no excuse for not coming down and watching these terrific high school football players. They've been working hard. They've been eating a lot. They've been having a great time. You can get tickets online right now, touchstoneenergybowl.com. Tickets for the game are $20. You can buy them online there or at the gate. Today was also a big day in that the players went to a local Target store here in Myrtle Beach. They were matched up with kids from the area, and they went holiday shopping with them. And the players got to present the youngsters with gifts. It was big time, always a big moment of the week for both the players, the coaches, and the young people as well. Our phone number, 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Put out a Twitter poll last night after USC basketball game. Is it okay for Frank Martin to call out USC fans for poor attendance the last two home games? 81% over 1,200 voters, 81% said yes, it is okay for him to do that. Now, if he happened to be a reporter at a football game and happened to mention that the attendance at that particular football game ain't so good, well, that ain't allowed. But if the head coach wants to call you out, so be it.
Well, you had plenty
Also
of
want to
people.
mention,
You had plenty of people who were angry about that.
I want a follow-up poll question. Should have coach questioned the marketing department?
Yeah, I don't know how Justin King and the folks in the Gamecock marketing department feel after he threw them under the bus last night and ran back over it today.
well, apparently, they were named the best football Twitter site in the world. So I mean, South Carolina can be, if you feel like that's important, if that helps you win football games, and so be it. They've got a very good Twitter presence with their football videos. Our poll question on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, reaction to the college football 4 committee got it just right. 68% say yes. 11% say Ohio State got what it deserved. In other words, got left out. So most of the people voting, about over 400, committee got it just right, 68%. That seems to be the consensus, guys, of the pundits and the fans. I think everybody's pretty much happy with the 4 that will play for the national championship.
You really can't put any qualms with the committee with the way things went because of the fact that you're looking at the 4 best teams, number one, and number two, you're punishing what would have been the worst loss in the history of this, again, very small sample size, but no one had a 31-point loss to anyone in the college football playoffs brief history. And to a school like Iowa, and again, no disrespect to Iowa, or maybe all the disrespect in the world to Iowa, because I don't really like them. I have no love lost for the state of Iowa. Fact of the matter is, you lost to Iowa by 31. You don't deserve to play in the college football playoff. Boom.
Plus, they got a favor last year because they were not the Big Ten champion. Penn State was, and they got in.
And like I said earlier this week, don't think they weren't thinking about that 31-0 blowout against Clemson last year in the semifinals.
They go, and they want the trifecta. They want Alabama, Clemson. Obviously, you wanted it in the championship game for the third go-round, but
would you rather have it
in the semifinals right off Bourbon Street? Why not? That's it.
Rather have it than not have it at all.
There we go.
By the way, Will Muschamp and Jim Harbaugh were together today down in Tampa for an Outback Bowl gathering. We'll try and bring some of that to you a little bit later on in the program as well. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Lines are open if you'd like to join us here tonight on Sports Talk. We'd love to hear from you. Brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. A couple of other things to pass along to you. Of course, Hayden Hurst, the big news that he announced today, and nobody's surprised at his age, having played baseball for a couple of years professionally, getting into college late, emerging as maybe the premier tight end in college football, at least in the eyes of the scouts for the NFL. Time for him to go. I tell you what, guys, you'd love to have 50 of those kind of players in your program. A guy that came in from day one, his work ethic was impeccable, got better and better every year on the field, tremendous blocker, downfield receiver, and apparently really, really big leader in that locker room.
My only qualm with it is that I don't even know through the last 2 years where he was with this program that he was even as fully utilized as he could have been. I know that a lot of what he did and what he was asked to do this year had to center around the run blocking and a lot of the max protect stuff that they tried to do in order to try and get their run game going. And they didn't necessarily target him as much early on in the season. But when it came into conference season, he was a beast. And I just hope that whoever can get him in the National Football League can utilize him better than the staff did here.
This is a guy who, in my opinion, because he's still a developmental prospect, remember he came in as a wide receiver turned tight end. This is one of those ironic situations where a guy at the college level will be a more effective NFL player, especially
Totally
in the
agree.
red zone, because when they go to two tight ends, this receiver and athlete with quick burst speed that can get in the corner of the back of the end zone or run a quick curl pattern in the front of the end zone, get you in the end zone, or if you want to get your guy a hole, he's a good, effective blocker. So H-back tight end from the 40-yard line on in, Hayden Hurst is going to be a valuable commodity to a lot of football teams.
All right, let's get to a couple of quick phone calls. Glenn, North Charleston, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How you doing?
How you doing, guys?
Good.
Getting ready for the snow tomorrow?
Where's it going to snow?
It's snow in Columbia area sometime tomorrow. That's all
Well,
I
let me
heard.
ask Professor Tom Hayes about that. Is it supposed to snow tomorrow?
The only snow I'm going to see is some dishwashing detergent I'm going to put in my washing machine. That's about it. I can't see any snow coming down.
I thought they was talking about that for maybe like Georgia and some of those areas. I didn't hear anything about snow coming here. It's just it's not gonna be cold enough for that.
Oh, yeah. But I was thinking, I know who would probably take the Tennessee job.
Who's that?
Okay, who was that?
O.J. Simpson. He's still out of work.
Yeah, but he's of retirement age.
Tennessee got their man, right? They got their man. Unlike the FBI, the Tennessee got their man.
Ooh.
Yeah, but look at it this way. Look at all that experience. He could be an assistant or something.
Nah, I think that OJ, and thanks for the phone call, I think OJ's just very happy in Las Vegas doing whatever it is. He voted for the Heisman this year, He's a free man. He did place his vote for the Heisman. Let's go to Tippy in Edgefield, who is with us now. Tippy, welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, a couple quick comments for you. They are saying possible about a 1-inch dusting around here as far as the snow goes. I'm thinking Greenwood might get a little bit of it, upper state area. Two things. One, last week you were talking about one of y'all was having a problem with the Uber. Well, they still have taxis out there, so that'll get rid of your Uber problem.
Corn was having problems with Uber.
Go old school. Don't taxi.
Well, that's what I told him to
ended
do.
up doing that.
That's what I was telling him to do in New York. New York is the worst place to order an Uber because they gouge you with the surge.
Right. Well, we went to New York one time, and we three of us, and we gave the driver $20 a piece and just told him to drive like a New York taxi man and bring us back to where we started at, just so we get the experience. So, another thing is, your talk show here. I wish that I had a chance to listen to some of the comments of the people that got left out of the top four and listen to their comments about why they think they should have been in. Just your thoughts on that, and I'll let y'all go at it from there.
Well, two things. A, don't be a member of the Big Ten, and B, win more games.
And
that
Urban
would
was
probably
very
help you get
politically
in.
correct with his answer. I think Urban was comfortable if you saw him on the show that night.
Don't lose to Iowa. That's your motto. Don't lose to Iowa.
Good point. Hey, thank you for the calls. 800-956-7266. Back right after this. Sports Talk on a Thursday night. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, 800-956-7266, brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org, pork powered by soy. It is time for a session of Morgan on the Move, starring the one, the only, Mike Morgan of MikeMorgan.com. Brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Their mortgage team is more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. Whether buying or refinancing, visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to apply today and earn more this Christmas with select Founders credit cards. And by BP Skinner Clothiers, people nationwide and peoples get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Very best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more. They are all available to you. Located in Columbia in the Vista, or he'll come to you. Visit bpskinnerclothiers.com to set up an appointment. Uncle Mike joining us now. So has your head stopped spinning related to all the coaching moves around the SEC?
Yeah, I guess it has, really. I mean, everything's calmed down now. I'm still trying to make sense of a couple of the hires. But, look, if Tennessee can finally decide on the head coach, then anything is possible. I think we're back to DEFCON 5.
Okay, so which one or ones left you scratching your head?
Well, I mean, I guess the way it ended for Tennessee, you could say that's not exactly a shocker. I mean, you hire an established defensive coordinator who's been successful at multiple spots and who most recently has been under Nick Saban. And so you say, well, that's really not that controversial or shocking. But the path that Tennessee took to get there, certainly you have to ask yourself, if this is what you were going to wind up with, this is a guy you could have gotten a month ago, or it's a guy you could have gotten a month later. I mean, it's not a splash hire. And you go through all the drama of multiple ADs, bringing back Phil Fulmer, getting rejected, having egg on your face from people saying no that would have otherwise said yes if you not had the Schiano debacle. And, I mean, that's always going to be the one that stands out. I think Chad Morris to Arkansas is not shocking. I think it's a good fit. You know, look, so many of these hires, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say, for example, Willie Taggart at Florida State, home run hire. Really? Based on what? I mean, we use that term so sparingly and so capriciously that we really don't put a lot of thought into it, I think. The answer is we don't know very often. And to say a guy who, you know, has for the most part been limited in his resume, some of these guys, and say, well, that's a home run hire for some of these major jobs. I don't think you can say that at this point in time.
Mike, Lincoln Riley said something today that I think not a lot of these programs are thinking about, and it was in reference to the college football playoff. But it's just, in essence, it's just very, very difficult to expect you to be able to compete to be in the playoff every year or to be in that playoff perennially. And I think that the playoff has had a negative effect on the expectations of some of these programs. How do you feel that has affected not just the SEC, but nationwide when it comes to the fact that a lot of these coaches are getting a shorter leash?
Well, I think what's really hurt a lot of coaches, let's start in the SEC. Number one, you could make the argument that years from now we'll look at Nick Saban as a guy who not only brought great success to Alabama, but fired more coaches in the SEC than anybody could possibly have done. I mean, he has set the bar so high for so many others in that conference, and you have so many fan bases saying, well, why not us? If Nick Saban can do it, where's our Nick Saban? That's the mentality of a number of fan bases. And then I think the other thing is, when you look at the playoff, for example, and let's take Saban out of it. Lincoln Riley in his first year has Oklahoma in the playoff. Kirby Smart in his second year has Georgia in the playoff. Mark Richt in his second year had Miami poised for a playoff run. And Dabo Swinney didn't take that long to turn Clemson into a pretty mediocre program into a perennial power. So all this does is, with these quick turnarounds that you see at a number of different spots, I think it livens up the flames, if you will, fans the flames for fan bases to say, well, if they can get it done so quickly by changing coaches, then we should fire our coach every 3 years, every 4 years, if we're not getting maximum results. And I think in very many cases that's an exercise in futility, because it's really hard to be a successful program by doing that. And again, you point back to Knoxville as a prime example of that.
Mike, we look at these programs, and obviously it's been, I would say 20, 25 years, we've been in what we call a materialistic arms race with all these facilities, indoor practice facilities, exercise rooms, medical rooms, that sort of thing. And now we see the head coaches being hired, but the dust still has not cleared, because now we're going to see some big checks written to draw assistant coaches and coordinators, especially from other schools. You see the squeezing of the goose, the golden egg being lost with all these salaries, and some of these athletic programs already sort of in red ink.
As long as we continue on this upward trend, there's always an end. There's always a bubble. We know that. Some people think that we might even be reaching that in the NFL, although when you see Roger Goodell getting $40 million a year, you wonder if we really hit that point yet. But at some point, I think the next round of television contracts will be fascinating, because as much as we talk about donations from fan bases and ticket sales and everything else, what caused this meteoric rise in salaries for head coaches, and for that matter, to your point, staffs, was the TV money. The TV money was never anything like this. It wasn't that long ago where on a given college football Saturday, there were like 4 games on national television, and that was it. If you wanted to see a game, you had to actually go to the game. Or then you had pay-per-view and you spent $30 for a game. Now every game is televised, billions upon billions of dollars in contracts from ESPN and Fox and CBS. And that money is trickled down, and that's where it's going. It's going facilities and it's going coaches. And it's a simple case of supply and demand, but I don't see any athletic departments at the highest level that are in the black in the red right now. I mean, most of them are still managing to turn a profit one way or another.
Let's talk quickly basketball. You're coming in to do USC Coastal Carolina on Saturday. I think fans are already lining up down the street, Lincoln Street, and out into the Vista to get in line for that one, based on recent attendance in Columbia. What are you expecting to see from the Gamecocks as they go up against one of their old nemesis, Cliff Ellis?
Now, Frank Martin is not going to appreciate your sarcasm there. I hope you are. I hope you don't bring that to the building on Saturday. Look, he's fired up about it.
I got to pay for that because he's going to be at the beach. I got to pay for
Oh,
that.
there you go. Oh, there you go. He throws the grenade, and then you guys got to run for cover.
Yeah.
That is so cornblued, I'll tell you.
Very on brand of him.
Yes. Look, I actually think, despite your underselling it, it's a pretty intriguing matchup. Cliff Ellis, obviously, we know his track record, and he's had some success at Coastal. And I think for South Carolina, this game, and obviously the one after against Clemson, these are very meaningful games. I just had Florida last night losing at home to Loyola of Chicago, a top 5 team losing to a team from the Missouri Valley that hasn't beaten a top 5 team in about 30 years. So Frank is still trying to figure out what he has. You've got a roster that is chock full of freshmen and transfers. You lose the heart and soul and the player of the year in the SEC in Thornwell. So I think we're all trying to figure out exactly what South Carolina is. I think Frank Martin's still trying to figure out what he's got.
Mike, we appreciate it as always. Have yourself a great weekend in Columbia. You seem to always do. And we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Mike Morgan on the move with us here on Sports Talk, coming back with recruiting and maybe a little bit of Frank Martin for your listening pleasure in the next segments. Back in just a moment. That South Carolina stuff, we'll drop that in the second hour as well.
I got about 3 minutes to each.
Harbaugh and Muschamp.
Yes.
Did Muschamp say anything? Was he asked about the OC and that kind of stuff?
No, it was very fluffy.
Very fluffy. Kind of like a biscuit from Bojangles in the morning.
He did say they would start practice December 16th.
Yeah, that's already been on Mr. Know Everything site. It's amazing. Amazing.
Story about it. They don't have. It's not. They don't give a damn who's the offensive coordinator.
Comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
As you might imagine, there is a lot happening in recruiting with this early signing period. I don't know if I'm going to be a fan of this early signing period, to be honest with you. If you're going to do an early signing period, I'd like to see it way early. Of course, then you run the risk of issues with coaches being fired and stuff like that.
And guys getting hurt.
We'll see how it plays out. I don't know. I see a lot of anxiety on the part of some guys. It's just another decision piled on top of another decision.
I don't see how 2 months makes that big a difference, to be brutally honest.
I don't either. Well, the coaches want it because they can secure the majority of their class.
Of course.
They don't have to keep recruiting these guys. The problem's with the players because now they're getting piled on here during a time when, they're trying to wrap up maybe some exams in school or finish up their high school seasons, whatever the case. It is what it is. Let me get to what we've got tonight. First of all, Clemson, one of the running back targets for them is Joshawn Corbin out of Rockledge, Georgia. He he's a former Tennessee commitment. I'm sorry, not a former Tennessee. Well, yeah, early on he was a Tennessee commitment, and then he was a Florida State commitment, and he decommitted there earlier this month. So he's been committed to Tennessee. He's been committed to Florida State. He's taken an official to Oregon, and he's got one scheduled with Clemson for December 15th. He said Clemson's always been one of his favorite schools since he started being recruited by the big-time schools. He's been in touch with Clemson running backs coach Tony Elliott, and he made an unofficial visit in April and was impressed with what he saw. TCU and Nebraska, two other schools that have been in to see him this month. Says he still feels committed, but at one point he felt committed, but now he's taking a look around to see what these other schools have to offer to him. He was moved to quarterback 4 games into the season and rushed for over 1,000 yards and had 700 passing yards, 2,300 all-purpose yards. Missed this last night, so I bring it up tonight. USC target defensive back Savion Smith of Mississippi Gulf Coast Junior College committed to Alabama late yesterday afternoon. Florida offered USC commitment defensive back Jonathan Gibson of Houston, Georgia. He is scheduled for his official to USC this weekend. Several USC commitments are scheduled for officials this weekend. He is one. USC target defensive back Trey Dean of Hampton, Georgia, who had decommitted from Tennessee earlier today, will take an official visit to Kentucky this weekend. USC had an in-home visit with him last night. Defensive end K.J. Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, will not make his official visit to Alabama this weekend. It appears Alabama is no longer in the running. Now, Brenton Cox, another big-time defensive end from Georgia, just decommitted from Ohio State, and perhaps Alabama now is setting their sights on him. USC coach Will Muschamp met with Henry and his mother this morning at the school for his in-home visit. He is not going in the home tonight. That was his visit. Remember, Henry's father is a coach at Charlotte, and he's out recruiting himself, so the mom was involved in the visit this morning. Georgia is trying to work in a visit with him this weekend before he leaves for the Shrine Bowl. He'll be in Spartanburg starting Saturday or Sunday for the Shrine Bowl. The game is December 16th. A dead period begins December 18th. He plans to sign December 20th. Clemson coach Dabo Swinney made his in-home visit with Henry last night. USC target defensive back Israel Mukwama, Bossier City, Louisiana, had his in-home last night with Purdue. Both of the secondary coaches were in. Head coach Jeff Brom will visit next week. USC and Indiana coaches were in earlier in the week. Mukwama said he heard from USC's Travaris Robinson on Wednesday. USC is still his favorite, but he might wait until after visiting with Brom before making a commitment. USC target defensive back Asante Samuel told rivals Miami is making a strong push for him now. He's taken an official to USC and plans to visit Florida State, Miami, and Ohio State in January. He has been a Florida State commitment. USC coaches were in to see offensive lineman Jonathan Gwynn of Charlotte last night, per 247 Sports. USC and NC State, his top two. He plays in a state title game Saturday. Virginia Tech coach Justin Fuente is scheduled for his in-home with Dorman offensive lineman Jordan McFadden tonight. Chapman running back DJ Twitty receives a preferred walk-on offer from USC. He's in the North-South game. USC offered 2019 offensive lineman Ja'Kay Moore, Nokesville, Virginia, 2019 receiver Jameson Williams of St. Louis, 2020 receiver James Frenchie of St. Louis, and 2020 running back Mookie Cooper of St. Louis. Clemson offered 2019 receiver Frank Ladson Jr. of Miami, recently decommitted from Florida. Lower Richland defensive end Antonio Anderson has an official set to South Carolina State for January. He's also looking at Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb for visits. Wide receiver Brendan Easley of Palmetto Prep was offered by Marshall and Morgan State. His teammate, receiver Tyreek Martin, who's from Goose Creek, is hearing from Pitt, UMass, Eastern Kentucky, and Samford. There you go with our recruiting. Remember to check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. Do we have time to hear from Frank Martin, Will, before the break?
We do. Frank Martin last night, after an 80-64 win over Wyoming, pleased but not fully.
Obviously, winning's a lot better than the alternative. So anytime you win, you got to feel good about something. We played better in the first half. In the second half, we immediately reverted back to the habits and the breakdowns that that I allowed into our practice that caused us to play so bad last week. So we've worked real hard the last 2 days to fix it. That's why we played better in the first half. Now we got to continue to practice. And if it means we lose because we're tired, it is what it is. We're going to learn to play the game the way that we've worked so hard to play it here at South Carolina. And, it'd be nice if our marketing department helps us to get some people in the seats. It's a little disappointing to continue to play after the 2 winningest years in the history of the school in a building with 4,000 or 5,000 people. It's embarrassing.
Frank, how do you think your defense was tonight, specifically on the 3-pointers?
First half was good. We guarded the first half. We fought, we guarded. Then the second half, we got casual. We started jogging back on defense. No one took ownership of identifying the ball. Nobody was prepared to guard when people came off the dribble. They play in an unorthodox way because their bigs play outside the 3-point line. So they run stuff to kind of mess you up a little bit. So our ball screen coverage, the way we practiced it, was better than it had been last week, even though it was slightly different than what we usually do. But once again, we got lucky in the second half because we didn't guard the second half. We all we did was foul and jog. And we got lucky that, I don't know, they got tired, they got sped up. They're bigs I'm talking about, but they missed some open licks. They had open shots in the second half that they just missed.
I think there were 13 missed free throws tonight. Is that a mental thing, or do you just have to get guys in the gym and get them putting up shots?
It goes back to everything that I'm uncomfortable about with our team right now. Is our mental, it's our mindset, it's our approach, it's our casual, laid back, we'll get there when we get there mentality. That has to change. When your mind is not connected, you're not going to make free throws. When your mind is connected, free throws go in the basket. We got guys that can shoot. They're missing free throws because their mind kind of wanders too much. Like I said, we got a lot of issues that I allowed because I trusted in what I thought was going to be leadership, and the leadership's not there. So I've got to fix them. It's never the player's fault. It's my fault. I'm going to fix them. I tell the players all the time, this university hires me, stuck with me, and pays me a lot of money because I fix problems. I don't run away from problems. We're going to get it fixed.
Great stuff. I mean, you just can't top that. I will top it by saying after last night's free throw shooting percentage, after 351 teams in the country, USC ranks 309.
It's not good.
In free throw percentage.
It's not good.
Under 65%. They need to pick that up. But you cannot top Frank Martin for his brutal honesty. And it's appreciated here on Sports Talk.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. Our phone number, 800-956-7266. If you want to join us, let me pass along some other quick news notes. USC freshman corner Jamias Williams named to the SEC All-Freshman team today. Played very well in 11 games as a true freshman, 38 tackles, and 5th on the team with 4 tackles for loss. So he had a very good freshman year. Mickey Matthews, I'm sorry.
He had some lumps to start that season, but really came on strong in the latter part of the season and in the conference play as well.
Mickey Matthews, longtime football coach, announced his retirement today. He had been the defensive coordinator at Coastal Carolina. Dabo Swinney is a finalist for the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award. I mean, he's been a finalist for that thing so many times. He's been a finalist for it more than Eddie Robinson was. Like almost every year, Dabo is a finalist for that award, and he, deserves it. Reports are that Florida A&M is set to hire ex-Clemson and Citadel quarterback Willie Shotgun Simmons as the new head coach. And good news. Ty Solomon, the South Carolina State guard, released from the hospital in Raleigh today.
Very good news.
Everybody's happy to hear that.
Congratulations to Wofford. Georgia Tech journeyed into Spartanburg, and unlike USC, did not come out alive as the Terriers hit that big
call
three
that
at the buzzer.
the first signature win at the new Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium?
Oh, yeah. No question.
First one.
Clemson quarterback Kelly Bryant, according to NFL.com, ranked as the top Heisman candidate for 2018.
It's a nice thing, but
others on their list. Now, this is, they're reaching.
Yeah.
No knock at Bryant, but Georgia running back DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert.
Right.
Auburn quarterback Jarrett Stidham. Houston defensive tackle Ed Oliver. Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts, Ohio State quarterback Dwayne Haskins, Arizona quarterback Khalil Tate, Wisconsin running back Jonathan Taylor, and Ohio State defensive end Nick Bosa.
Remember when everybody thought Lamar Jackson was going to repeat as the Heisman? Yeah. So
he still had a big year.
He
still had a big year. I think if his team had been more successful with the numbers that he's got, or maybe even greater numbers, he might have been. I think everybody believes it's going to be Baker Mayfield, right?
Let me stop having to wear a parka outside before we start handicapping the 2018 Heisman. Okay. Baker,
I don't disagree.
Baker Mayfield just won the Davey O'Brien Award and the Walter Camp National Player of the Year Award. We have the College Football Playoff Awards up here. So
he has a trifecta.
Internet writers have to write something.
Well,
speaking of the big spur last night, J.C. Sherbert reported that Elia Drinkwitz. There's no J.
Eli
Drinkwitz.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eli Drinkwitz, offensive coordinator at NC State, has talked to Will Muschamp within the last couple of days about the job at South Carolina.
And people were getting on you with that information saying, no. I'm like, do you not understand? Do you not remember the first week of the season? That team that I believe it was like 500 total yards against South Carolina. They scored 31 on the Clemson defense. Yeah, they didn't win, but why are you so high and mighty, South Carolina fans, to balk at anybody who could possibly be coming in here to try and revamp this offense, which, by the way, was 108th in total offense this year at 129 and 100th in scoring?
Corn, I got to think that Muschamp just said, look, if anybody can move the football against Clemson, they can move the football against anybody. The numbers here, and I know Clemson had some big plays, including a punt return in Raleigh. NC State total offensive yards 482 against that Clemson defense. The year before, his first year at NC State, when they missed the field goal and Clemson won in overtime, 390 yards of total offense on arguably maybe a better Clemson defense. So he may have lost some games, NC State has, including against South Carolina, but at least his offense moved the football against the Tigers.
Let's see. I think that has covered everything there that I want to mention to you. And do we have Aaron and Jordan? Is that what you're telling me? Okay. Well, let's go into a segment here of a give and go, as we had planned to do this a few minutes ago before we got into the talk there about South Carolina. Let's welcome in former Gamecock guard Aaron Lucas, former Clemson guard Jordan Roper, as we talk a little basketball here on Sports Talk on this Thursday night. Guys, how are you?
Good. How are you? How you guys doing?
Good. Good to have both of you with us. And Aaron, let's talk with you first about the Gamecocks coming off the win last night and the win the other day against UMass. Frank Martin, though not a happy guy in any form or fashion, I think he's just mad at everything right now.
Well, I think he's, he sees a lot of potential, but he also understands he's got a lot of young guys and some guys. It's a brand new team for the most part. When you lose some of that senior leadership and a guy like Darius Stonewell, who's a motivating captain and a great leader, you have to find those new dynamics. And I think right now he's waiting on somebody to step into that type of role.
Aaron, when you have your head coach go in front of the media, as he did in particular Saturday, and just call out players by name. I mean, he said, Hassani Gravett, next time he guards somebody will be the first time. And he's fed up with Chris Silva getting all these fouls. How does that affect the locker room? Does it? Were you ever in that situation, being called out individually like that?
No, I don't think publicly, no. I think Eddie Fogler did a great job of holding everyone accountable. I think Frank has his style of doing the same thing. I think in the same notion, these guys understand where Coach Martin is coming from. It's not like Hassani or Chris Silver haven't heard this dialogue before and haven't been around him, for a year or two. So they understand where he's coming from, and there's nothing like being held accountable. So I don't think it affects the locker room per se. I just think that's his style of trying to get his guys to understand how important that role is to the team.
Jordan, Clemson's kind of spread things out. No midweek game for them. They come off a win against UNC Asheville. They play Samford this weekend before two big tests against Florida and South Carolina. How ready do you think the Tigers are to go into not only a neutral site contest against the Gators, but also that big contest at home against the Gamecocks?
I think they're coming into, those big games with confidence. They're playing good basketball. Dante Grantham's really stepped up as a leader, as I said before, and Elijah Thomas, they're both carrying the load for the Tigers. And I think the more wins that you get under your belt, the more things that you work on throughout those games, you'll build confidence and it's positive momentum moving forward.
Looking at Clemson as they adjust going into the ACC season, what improvements do you see they have to make in order to make some headway once they get into conference play?
Definitely, defensively on-ball defense. I mean, that's been the identity of Clemson basketball when I was there, and ever since Coach Brownell's been there. It's just, really harping on guys, individually, paying attention to the scouting report, paying attention to personnel, and, really guarding the ball in the man-to-man defense. And, moving forward, that can always be improved. And some of the games that I'm watching is some of the young guys, catching up to the older guys in terms of, defensive knowledge and basketball knowledge. And moving forward, I think that'll be huge for them to improve on.
Jordan, the Tigers are shooting over 51% from the floor, 37% from three, 77% from the line. Can they keep that up as they face better teams?
I'm not sure, but I hope so. You spend a lot of time in that gym, and like I said, moving forward, these guys have confidence, and hopefully they can keep that positive momentum going.
Yeah. What do you see in Dante? Well, hang on. We're going to hit a break. We'll come back to you. Thank you guys for getting to us. Aaron Lucas, Jordan Roper, little give and go here on Sports Talk. We'll come back in a few more minutes and talk some more basketball about the Gamecocks and Tigers with the two former standout guards here on Sports Talk. Back in a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, back with you, Give and Go with Jordan Roper and Aaron Lucas here on Sports Talk for a few more minutes. Want to get back to Jordan real quick here before we talk to Aaron for a couple more minutes. And what I wanted to ask you was just the immense improvement that we've seen in Grantham so far this season. I mean, he looks like an entirely different player. Is it possible that with Blossom game gone, he's just capturing the moment and senses that, you know, here's his opportunity to really be the guy and the leader on that basketball team?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's exactly what we're seeing. You know, he's playing with confidence, and he feels that he is that guy that's in control of, you know, his team. It's his senior moment, and he's stepping into it and playing great basketball at the moment.
Aaron, I know that Frank Martin has said that there are a variety of things that they need to fix. How would you prioritize them, and what do you see as I guess, the biggest handicap to success right now for the Gamecocks?
Well, I think the success of the teams in the past have been the defense. And I think that, again, that's where Coach Martin's frustration has been coming from, because I think he's seeing not necessarily a lack of intensity, just a lack of focus, you know, for a full 40 minutes. So I think that's where all the success will continue to come from is getting guys to buy in and staying focused. Again, it's a young team. They're still new to what the philosophies are, but if they can, you know, continue to grow and build into and, you know, buy into the defensive principles that he's teaching, I think that'll be the success and the key to success down the road.
You know, guys, what's coming up in December, it's South Carolina going up to Clemson. And I think we're all just kind of counting down the days till that game rolls around. And, you know, we like to put as much excitement into that as possible, sort of like the football game. I know there's so many basketball games that it kind of gets lost in the entire length of the season. But for that night, it's awfully big. So, Aaron, from what you've seen at the Gamecocks and the Tigers thus far, and we'll talk more about it as it gets closer, but how do you see the matchups between the two teams right now?
I think it'll actually be a little bit more interesting than maybe a lot of people may have predicted early on. I think Clemson has done a good job of defining themselves offensively and start to be, you know, build an identity. And I think South Carolina is still in a position where they're starting to discover that identity. So I think it'll be a great matchup. Looking forward to it. And, of course, I'll be keeping my eyes on it as well.
Yeah, so if you were to pick – if they were playing tonight, Aaron, who would you project as the winner?
Put me on the spot, but I still obviously have to go with my Gamecocks. But, again, I think it's going to be a tougher game than anyone would probably anticipate early on in the year.
Jordan, what about you? How do you see the matchup as based on what you've seen of the two teams? How do you see the matchup coming up?
I think it'll be, like Aaron said, it'll be a tough matchup for both teams. I mean, it's a rivalry game. There'll be a lot of emotions and passions on both sides, and they both understand how important this game is. So, you know, right now, of course, I'm going with Clemson. I mean, to me, they're playing better basketball right now. But I know Frank Martin, he's a Final Four coach. He's a successful coach. He'll get his guys in line, and they'll figure things out. And but I mean, I think by that time, I think Clemson will still have that positive momentum moving forward.
Would you take Clemson's guards over USC's guards right now?
Yes, I actually would. Sheldon Mitchell and Marquise Reed both have, you know, real game time experience. I mean, Marquise Reed had a 20-point game in the NCAA tournament against Duke, and Sheldon Mitchell played SEC basketball. So, I mean, both of these guys have had, you know, experience on the court, and I think moving forward, I think right now, if you look at the two teams and their guards, I think Clemson has upper hand.
And Aaron, last thing for you guys. Aaron, where would you see South Carolina having an edge over Clemson?
Well, I think right now it's, again, defensively is where South Carolina's built their identity, and I think that's what got them wins in the past. So I think right now, just having that confidence coming off a big year, being able to beat the Tigers over the last couple of years. And, you know, you always go into a rivalry confident, but, you know, like Jordan said, the experience of Clemson's backcourt will make the matchup very interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to get here, but they both got work to do between now and then, and we'll talk about it with you guys next week on Wednesday. Get back with you next Wednesday night. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me.
Great having you. Aaron Lucas, Jordan Roper, two outstanding basketball players from our state, and collegiately at USC and Clemson, respectively. We appreciate them being with us. All right, let's get back to football, Willie. And today in Atlanta, the Final Four coaches getting together. We've got more from Dabo Swinney.
Got more from both guys, and the question was asked of both Saban and Swinney about when they thought they had what it took, to make a college football playoff run.
Well, our team was a little bit different this year in that I thought early on we really played well, and as the season went on, we continued to accumulate a lot of adversity, mostly through injuries and physical problems that we had that really affected, our team's ability to grow. And I really liked the way the players sort of persevered and overcame the adversity and kept playing. And it created a lot of opportunity for a lot of other young players to go out there and play. So I think the togetherness that our team showed throughout the year to have the consistency in performance that we wanted to try to get, and the adversity that they overcame showed the true competitive character of what could lead into a team that could have a chance to compete for a championship. So, but I was a little disappointed in the way we finished the season. A great lesson to be learned in all that. When you have a chance to control your own destiny and you don't, you put your fate in the hands of somebody else. And we feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to be in the Sugar Bowl to play Clemson.
For us, I felt like in camp, obviously we lost a lot of guys offensively, especially, and I felt like in camp we had a chance, but I just hadn't seen our quarterback, really play in any meaningful, stressful game situation. So how's he going to respond? And you try to create all that stuff in practice as best you can, but the Auburn game, knowing that we're playing a really good team and a great defense, especially, and watching how he handled the moment, and then going the very next week on the road to Louisville, game day, all that stuff, and same thing, watching our quarterback, and I just, I really felt like we had other pieces to have a chance to win, week in and week out. And once really those two games, I felt like, this kid has got a chance to really lead us, and he needed that early success himself as the leader, because the guys all respected him. But, in that position, you got to play well. And he played two great games, and I think that was the confidence early that this team needed. And then we just have kind of grown throughout the year and gotten a little bit better along the way.
And the defensive back that will possibly play prominent in that game, Minka Fitzpatrick for Alabama, just earned the Jim Thorpe Award given to the nation's top defensive back. So, again, there are a lot of highly decorated players that will be on the field in that Sugar Bowl matchup.
It would be interesting when you look at Clemson and how they can stuff Alabama's running game, is because I think they're going to get a good dose, Corn, of Bo Scarborough and that vaunted Alabama running game to keep Clemson's offense off the field.
Well, I would think so, but there's nothing that Alabama's going to show them that they haven't seen the last 2 years, and vice versa, because Alabama's just going to do what Alabama does, and now Clemson will kind of do the same thing, though Clemson has some different people in positions of influence on their offensive side in particular. One thing about Clemson that's going to be a positive for them, guys, is they're going to be, for the first time in many weeks, healthy on defense. They should get Trey Lamar back. They should get Marcus Edmond back, and they should get Mark Fields back.
Not only are they better on that side of the football, but they're just playing better overall than Alabama was going into the break. Alabama still hasn't played since that loss in the Iron Bowl to Auburn, and they still have that kind of sour taste in their mouth, whereas Clemson, you could argue that the 4 quarters they played against Miami are the 4 best quarters they've played all year.
Oh, well, they just look great. If Kelly Bryant plays like that, It won't be a contest. We'll be right back. We continue with Sports Talk on this Thursday night. Good to have you with us. Coming up, we're going to hear from Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp and Jim Harbaugh were down in Tampa. I was going to say Orlando. Down in Tampa today, promoting the Outback Bowl. They probably had a nice meal with a nice bloomin' onion, all that kind of stuff. A reminder for you, of course, we've got football here at the beach. You know, if you miss football, we wrapped up the championship weekend for the colleges. We had the championship weekend for high schools, but now it's all-star time. We've got the Touchstone Energy Bowl followed by the Shrine Bowl. So if you need to scratch that itch for football, Come on down to the beach and get your tickets early at touchstoneenergybowl.com, or you can buy them at the gate. The weather's going to be fine. It's going to be football weather, by golly. If Packer fans can sit in the stands at -13, you can sit in the stands at 50 degrees with no rain, no precipitation. It's going to be a great day. Come down, watch football, go get yourself some good seafood, hang out at the beach, see who wins Mr. Football in South Carolina. That comes up at halftime. And we welcome you to come down and support this game, and then do the same thing the next week in Spartanburg for the Shrine Bowl. Now, Will Muschamp, Jim Harbaugh, going to match wits on the sidelines on January 1 when they face off in the Outback Bowl. Today, guys, they were together matching comments down in Tampa.
And Muschamp, obviously, with being surrounded by Tampa media, did not feel any questions about the vacant offensive coordinator position, but did field a lot of questions about what it will be like to take his team down to Tampa for the Outback Bowl.
Coming to the Tampa area is awesome, number one, to spend for a week with your football team. We're excited about that. The preparation and extra work you get for your team, for your program, means so much, especially for the younger players. But the bowl game is a great reward for your staff that works extremely hard for their families, for your players, for their families to be able to come to Tampa, to come to James Raymond Stadium and being part of the history of the Outback Bowl, and to play against a Big Ten opponent in Michigan, the team that we've got great respect for.
Absolutely. And you said, it is a reward, but it doesn't come without the hard work to either get here and also to prepare. I mean, without giving too much away, how's your team preparing for this game?
Well, we haven't started practice yet. We're going to start. We will start after exams are over on December 16th, and we'll practice through the 22nd in Columbia. And then we'll get about 6 practices down here on the 26th when we start practice and working into the January 1st bowl game.
What's the biggest challenge that you foresee facing Michigan?
Well, I think, first defensively, they attack you. I mean, they challenge every play. And whether it's in the throwing game or passing game, they got some really talented guys. And I think Don Brown's as good a defensive coordinator there is in the country, does a fantastic job. And then offensively, they're a little different style. It's a little bit more of 1980 when Coach Harbaugh played at Michigan, as far as the two backs, the four-man services, the powers, the different stuff that they do, but very creative in the run game and the play actions off of that.
And what is something your team is really going to focus on going into the game?
Well, I think, first of all, we're going to focus on ourselves as far as improving our fundamentals and techniques, and that's why you've got more time. It's in essence, a bowl game practice to me is a lot like spring ball. You're able to really go back to hone in on the fundamentals and techniques of the job and what you've got to do to be successful. And then we'll spend some time, obviously, in Columbia and try and get the game plan in for Michigan in about 3 or 4 practices before we break for Christmas, and then come back in here and just kind of hone in on the game plan, on the things we need to do to be successful. There's a lot of good distractions here, so that's good. So we've got to be able to focus, and, the fun's in winning. And that's what I tell guys about the bowl game. At the end of the day, we're here to win a football game and have some fun and enjoy your time, enjoy Tampa, but understand why we're here.
And speak to the bigger picture for me, fans traveling, what this does for your school, the entire program.
Well, I think, again, we took over a program that had won 3 games the year before. We won 6 games last year and now 8 this year, and an opportunity to win 9 and for only the 7th time in school history. And that says an awful lot about this football team and the accomplishments that we've had in a very short time as a staff. I like where we are, but I really like where we're headed. 70% of our roster is freshmen and sophomores. For our fan base, which travels extremely well, it's the most loyal fan base in the country, to come to Tampa and enjoy this with our football team is special to me.
While you're down here, looking at any of the players down here from the local?
Oh, there's a bunch. Tampa's been good to me. Dante Fowler, Jones, and Brian Poole, and all those guys at Florida that we had. We had some fantastic players, some fantastic people, and a lot of their families are here. They've already reached out and want to come by practice and such. So I'm looking forward to it.
Pretty sure the reporter who asked that question knows that Will Muschamp can't speak to any specifics of players that he needs to talk to when it's down in Florida. A man who is no stranger to the bowl environment is Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh.
What to you? Yeah, I played a few, more than a few, I think, occasions when I was playing with the Bears. We used to be in the same division with the Bucks, so it's always nice to be here. I mean, got a lot of friends, family now that live in Tampa. My wife's sister lives here, and a lot of our players, come from these parts. So got a lot of friends and associates, people I've worked with through the years. it's a nice place to live, nice place to visit.
And this game
Good place to play a ball game. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I stepped on that last part. But this game provides you a nice platform for, and you've been here before. I mean, establishing a footprint in Florida.
Yeah, it gives us a chance. Our team is, striving to get better every day. Better today than yesterday, better tomorrow than today. That gives us an opportunity to put a exclamation point on what we've done so far this year, and also propel us into next year. So we'll be striving and fighting hard to win this ball game.
Coach, what was the reaction when you guys heard that you would be playing in this ball game?
A couple of people have asked me that. The day it was announced was a Sunday. It was the players' day off. So I think everybody in their own mind pictures that we gather the whole team and we're sitting in an auditorium waiting for the announcement. But all our players were off that day. So, but everybody knew exactly. When the announcement came out, everybody has access to social media and the internet, and I was very fired up. I can tell you how I felt about it. I was thrilled. Great reputation as the Outback Bowl has as a first-class bowl game.
And I'm not sure. I don't believe you've started preparing for this game quite yet. But I mean,
are you sure about that?
Oh, I take it back. As far as practicing goes.
Yeah, we're practicing.
Okay, you are
absolutely.
Practicing.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me what is on the schedule in preparation for this.
Yeah. So there's practice. There's film study. There's training. There's treatment. So, in fact, we're practicing today. Obligations mandate that I be here right now during practice, but Pep Hamilton, Don Brown, and Tim Drevno are running that practice back in Ann Arbor, and look to have a good report once I leave the press conference here.
And what challenge, the biggest challenge for C come game day, playing South Carolina?
Well, I mean, always, playing against a very good opponent, a highly motivated opponent. The challenge is a well-coached opponent. So the biggest challenge is defeating that opponent, and we'll be training very hard. As I said, we'll be striving to win this game, put an exclamation point on this year's season, what we've accomplished so far, and also propel us into next season as well.
So that's something a little meaty, Corn. They're already practicing up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. I guess. I think maybe they got indoor facilities, so I don't know. Maybe it's because of their exams. Everything has to be done this time of year around your exam schedule.
I think you got
to deal with that.
I think they're on a different schedule, and also just that dude's a little different. I mean, even when you hear him talk, that dude's there's a couple of screws loose up there. He's a very, very smart man.
I liked him better when he was with Stanford and the 49ers. He doesn't seem like the same guy back at Michigan, maybe because that's his school and he feels a little different, or he's older.
He takes it more personally.
I thought he was so cool when he was with the 49ers. Real quick, I want to change the subject a little bit. So the state newspaper in an article today was trying to make the case for Bobby Bentley as USC's offensive coordinator. Should that have some traction? Should Bobby Bentley get due consideration?
No shot. No shot. You're not going to put the father of the starting quarterback as your offensive coordinator. You're just not going to do that.
Well, if it's the best,
even if he's the best guy for the job,
I don't care. I don't want to open up that can of worms, especially if Jake Bentley comes out and has 4 or 5 inconsistent games to start the year. You do not want to put him in that position. You don't want to put your team in that position. I think I think there's no way that happens.
Might be worth the gamble, but I'm agree with you. Prudently, it doesn't seem to be the right decision.
Okay, we'll talk more about it in just a moment here on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Well, the thing about Bobby Bentley, for those of us who've been around the state, and you're excused, Will, you haven't been around, but for those of us who've been around the state, I mean, when he was at Burns as their head coach, offensive coordinator, or when he was an assistant to Chris Miller as an offensive coordinator, he had an offense that was emulated by many, studied by a lot, and the envy of everybody. I mean, back then, with Willie Corn at quarterback or whoever they plugged in at quarterback, man, they were 40, 50 points per game, throwing the ball all over the place. He was known for his offensive creativity. I don't want to say genius, but not a Bill Walsh, but an offensive creativity. And I'm just saying he should not be penalized by the fact his son's there if he is the best offensive mind and creative mind that Muschamp can hire. Now, I understand the optics and how it can get dicey, especially when you've got a high-profile quarterback like DeCarrion Joyner coming in and he sees, oh, now my coach, my quarterback coach, my coordinator, and his son is there. You know, that played a role in running off the previous backup quarterback, McElwain. You know, his mom wasn't, you know, she went on Facebook and said, you know, my son's got no chance against the coach's son. And she drew that line pretty clearly. Now, I would hope for South Carolina's sake that nepotism plays no role in this, and it's the best quarterback who's getting the snaps.
Well, here's the other part of this, too, that you need to think about is the fact that Will Muschamp gets one chance to make this hire and make it a good one because he's proven now, unfortunately, to the detriment of his particular job security. I'm not saying that his job security is in danger, but the one thing that I would say is that he has not been able and he has not proven in now 2 jobs that he can find somebody competent to run an offense. And not only is he not found that person, he has no desire to take part in the creative process behind running an offense. So if you're not going to do that, you need to at least show to somebody that you are going to provide something innovative, something new, somebody from outside of the program. So whether or not Bobby Bentley is this offensive genius and offensive guru, there's a reason that, number one, he's not calling plays in the bowl game, and number two, that I don't think he's going to be the next offensive coordinator for the University of South Carolina.
Well, one of the things you look at is the fact that for a Bobby Bentley, either is at South Carolina or somewhere else, guys like Gus Malzahn and Chad Morris have opened the door for innovative high school coaches to get into the building and be a play caller. And Will, I see where you're coming from, but here's the question. Either choice he makes is a leap of faith. He may make the best choice that looks great on paper, and the guy standing in the coach's offices right now may be the best choice, but not on paper, but may get the best results.
So keeping up with the names that are being bandied about out there with some degree of seriousness, we've got Eli Drinkwitz, of NC State offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, offensive coordinator, Ole Miss, Dan Werner, offensive analyst from Alabama, Bentley. And I guess you also still have to consider as well BMAC at USC, Brian McClendon, as a possibility. He could light it up in the bowl game, have a great couple of weeks of practice. Muschamp really like it. They go out and light it up in the bowl game. He could be considered.
Guy with Muschamp connections, Rhett Lashley, who's the offensive at UConn, not necessarily put up the kind of numbers at UConn that you would like to see from somebody coming in here, but somebody who at least Muschamp has connections with previously.
As well.
Yeah, at Corn, as we spoke earlier, the guy from NC State has been the only guy in the ACC, even though they've lost twice. They moved the football against Clemson using a quarterback who's not a running quarterback, but uses a sort of option run pass system. So interesting, his results, but the team hasn't won, but that could be factored in that their defense just is not as good as some of the defenses that South Carolina puts on the field.
Once I heard that name mentioned, like, that's the guy I want. Like, if you can get that guy, you hire that guy. And here's the other part of this, too, that we haven't mentioned yet, is that now with the NCAA next year adding the ability to put a 10th assistant on the field, it makes it even more imperative to get this hire right, because from what I understand, it seems that USC is going to use that 10th assistant position on the defensive side of the football and not on the offensive side of the football. So you need to get somebody who not only can coach as an offensive coordinator, but you have to have somebody who has the ability to work with QBs.
Didn't you see something out there related to Lance Thompson and Chris Rumpf?
Chris Rumpf is, according to a report from Fox Sports, looks like he is going to be part of the new coaching staff of Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. There are some rumors regarding Lance Thompson possibly following in suit as well, but nothing has been I wouldn't call it anything more than the rumor standpoint right now.
Well, I can add a little something more to the Thompson stuff from talking to recruits. One in particular who has exchanges with Lance Thompson, and apparently that's a possibility that Thompson could be heading somewhere else. I don't know exactly where, but this person told me that in one of the conversations that he had in discussing coming in for a visit or signing with South Carolina, and this, that, and the other, conversation came up about, hey, just keep in mind I may not be here, could be somewhere else, and that could be the case for any number of coaches that you're dealing with. But this person shared with me about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that could be a possibility at South Carolina.
It could be, but I mean, at the same time, I think that where you're sitting right now, you need to at least provide. And again, you mentioned the connection with the quarterbacks, with Bentley and DeCarrion Joyner. When on our post earlier today on Sports Talk's Twitter account at SportsTalkSC, DeCarrion Joyner posted a reaction on that and a quote tweet
to the NC State coordinator.
Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, come on, bring him." That tweet has since been deleted, but you could tell that's a pretty heavy endorsement from somebody who you think is the future of your offense.
And I'm looking at that Tennessee situation. And Corn, we talked about this for years, that one of the downfalls of Tennessee is Tennessee used to come into the state of South Carolina and cherry pick guys they wanted, and they got them. And as soon as South Carolina and Clemson threw a brick wall in front of Tennessee, and now Clemson going into Tennessee getting some of their players, they're looking to hiring these. If they hire these guys, they're looking for an inroad to get back in South Carolina.
And the thing is, they're not going to find much in South Carolina in 19. The next class is not a particularly good one in the state of South Carolina. So there is the Pickens kid at Anderson at T.L. Hanna, where Tennessee has gone in and gotten players before out of that town, who is being talked about as maybe the best prospect in the state for 19. But you're not going to find a whole lot in the 19 class as it stands now in South Carolina, just based on what we're seeing and hearing about the upcoming group. Okay, what did I want to mention to you? I saw something I wanted to pass along, and it had to do with the Bojangles Bash, which we talked about earlier this week on the program, and I wanted to give you a score on that. That tournament is now getting underway, so they're expecting big crowds over at Ridgeview for that, as we had Coach Rosefeld on with us earlier in the week. I can't put my hands on the score now. I was going to tell you that Keenan was being handled by whoever it was they were playing. Now I can't put my hands on it. So anyway, tomorrow is Friday. We'll get you ready for the weekend here on Sports Talk. We will talk more about the North-South game coming up, give you more details on that. And Willie, have more from the Tigers leading up to their showdown with Alabama.
We got plenty of stuff from what we got from the last couple of days. Travis Etienne, Austin Bryant, Kendall Joseph. You can hear from any number of players tomorrow.
And a reminder, Wofford has its playoff game up at North Dakota State on Saturday. We hope to hear from Coach Ayers. Happy birthday, Larry Bird. You've never looked finer. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.